Dear students, welcome to my channel. Through this video, let us discuss another important subject, that is research methodology, in which today we will be focusing on the important points to be covered or to be considered while setting up of a schedule or a questionnaire. Nowadays, almost all the universities have included in their curriculum the project or internship or the report preparation. So the students normally use secondary data or they go for primary data. Primary data are the data which are fresh hand data firstly collected by the researcher from the field. Secondary data is the data which are already available in the database. So today let us discuss what are the important points to be considered for setting up of a schedule or questionnaire. Schedule as well as questionnaire are common instrument for data collection. Both contains set of questions logically related to a problem under study. Both aims at eliciting the responses from the respondents which is going to be used for their research purpose. The response structure, wordings, question sequence, etc. are almost same. But there is slight difference between these two. Schedules are used for collecting data directly by the researcher through the interview method. But the questionnaire which are used by the researcher for collecting data but through indirect mode, it may be mailing questionnaire or maybe through the sending of Google form, etc. What are the important points that is associated with the process of construction of the schedule or questionnaire? First of all, it is the data need determination. Second is preparation of dummy tables. Third one is determination of the level and standard of respondents. And the next one is data gathering method decision and instrument drafting, evaluation of the instrument, pre-testing, specification of procedures or instruction, and design of the instrument. Let us discuss each one of these points in detail, and the first one is data need determination. Each research are unique and the researcher has to decide that what type of data that he is in need of, and the data need also different, so that the researcher must have a clear idea about what type of data that he is in need, because the data would be different for different study because of the reason that the research gap identified for their research would be different, and the research objectives are set for each type of research is different, and the data that we are going to collect for satisfying our research objective as well as the research hypothesis. We have to prepare dummy table. This is the second important factor that to be considered while setting up of the questionnaire, preparation of dummy table. It is for nothing but we need adequate information for our research. And how do we understand the adequacy of data, whether it is sufficient or not? Prepare dummy table. The solution is, the answer for all these questions is prepare dummy tables, so that we would understand how many tables that we are going to generate out of the data that we are going to collect. Similarly, it will help us to find out the duplication in questions, or the addition that to be made if we missed out something, or deletion that we can make if there is repetition, or we can go for corrections. And determination of the level and standard of the respondents is the third important point. First of all, the researcher must understand that who are going to be our respondents. Do they have specialized knowledge in the area of study, or do they have well understanding in the area of study, or their level of knowledge must be understood. Are they a layman? If they are a layman, the sending of Google form or the questionnaire may not work, so that it is ideal to go directly for
collection of data.
the next is data gathering method decision. The researcher has to decide that whether he is going to conduct a face-to-face interview, or the data would be collected through mailing or through sending Google form, or through a survey method, or collected through agents, or through enumerators, or which one is ideal for his study must be decided by the researcher, and based on that the schedule has to be drafted. While drafting the instrument, the researcher must set a broader outline of the instrument, and which should contain all the broad variables and the categories of item, and the pattern of data also has to be kept in mind. Then the sequence of question has to be kept very clear while setting up the question, and the researcher must rigorously evaluate the schedule that he is preparing or the instrument that he is preparing through the lens of the relevance of each question, the need of each question, whether that question to be asked or not needs to be considered. Similarly, the appropriateness of each question that he is going to be asked in the schedule. Similarly, the clarity of the question that we are asking must be very clear by the or from the side of the researcher. Then the practicability of the question through answering and converting it into data, the researcher must keep in mind while setting up of the instrument and while evaluating the instrument. Then the validity of the each question to be tested, and for that it is ideal to go for a pre-testing. It is to identify the weakness and strength of the instrument. So better the researcher can go for a pilot study before he is going for conducting a full-fledged study. It will help him to revise the schedule if it is required. And the various importance of pilot study are: it will support him, it will help him to modify the draft instrument, and if possible it should be done by the researcher himself. It will provide him a field experience if he would do that. Similarly, he can go for a 10% sample or a sufficient number of sample for the pilot study, so that he can have a clear understanding on the field. Then he will get a real experience from the field, even he go for the real study, and he can write a report based on that, and it could be included in the thesis, and a paper could be published out of this pilot study data collected, and it would provide input for writing suggestion and further research. All that would be gathered through conducting the pilot study. Next step, next important point is specification of the procedure that to be given in the instrument or the instruction given in the instrument. Procedures or instruction must be given very clearly, and clarity should be there. There should not be any complicated question. And while designing the instrument, it should be divided into different sections, subsections, and the section headings must be specified. Enough space must be given if it is open-ended type of questions. Questions must be understandable in the first reading itself. Questions relating to core personal things to be avoided. We need not ask unnecessary questions to the respondents, and core personal questions, they may not be entertained. So digging into their absolute personal thing may not be entertained. So it is ideal to ask questions which is absolutely relevant for the research. Similarly, questions asked in the schedule as well as questionnaire should be catchy or easy questions, and the sequence of the question should be very easily flowing, and we have to go for the validation of the question. It is to express the degree to which the measurement measures what it purports to measure. Whether it satisfies the need is to be tested through the validity testing, and it may be face validity, or it may be construct validity, or it may be content validity, or it may be the criterion validity, or convergent validity, discriminant validity, non-group validity, or hypothesis testing validity. There are many types of validity testing are there. The researcher can go for validity testing, and there was a wrong notion among the researcher, that is, if we adopt an existing question or questionnaire or schedule, or we adopt the existing questions which are already used by some researcher in our schedule, and there is no need for going for the validation of that question. But it is wrong, because their research field and their research gap, their research objectives may be different, so the data that they are collected may be different, so that we have to go for validity testing for the questions that we are going to ask from the respondents, our respondents, for our study. So that we have to go for the validation of our question, because our field and situations are result, so that the results also going to be different. Looking at the reliability of question, it shows the degree to which the results obtained by the measurement and the procedure can be replicated. Through the reliability importantly contributes to the validity of the questionnaire. It is, however, not a sufficient condition for the validity of the questionnaire. Lack of reliability may arise from divergence between observers to observer, or through instruments of measurement such as the questionnaire, or instability of the attribute being measured, which will invariably affect the validity of such a questionnaire. So there are three important aspects, namely equivalence, stability, and internal consistency or homogeneity. We can explain the validity and reliability through this picture. In this diagram, the first picture shows that there was no validity and no reliability in the first, because this data collected is not hitting to the center, it is not hitting to the heart, so it is not satisfying the research purpose, and the data gathered is scattered. So we can say that they do not hit the research purpose, so the aim is not satisfied, and through the repeated attempt it is scattered, so it may not be correct. But if you look at this second picture, we can see that this is reliable but not valid one. It is consistent at some point, but it is not hitting the real research objective. But here if you look at fairly valid but not reliability, because it is valid only, but it is not having that consistency or reliability in the nutshell, I would say. But if you look at the fourth picture in this diagram, you can see that this data is valid as well as reliable for conducting our research. So this kind of a test should be conducted before going for the original study. Through a pilot study, it would be ideal to test the validity and reliability. There are many tools available for testing the validity and reliability we can conduct. And my suggestion is, please do not go for too much of questions. If you go too much of question, there will be a large amount of data would be gathered at the end of the day. So there will be unnecessary table would be generated out of the data that you collected. So it is absolutely not needed for your research, so that you decide and confine with the questions that you are going to ask, and if it is too much of data, you, the researcher, would be confused and your focus will be diverted, and you may compare with your fellow researcher, your friends doing the same type of research. They may be having large number of questions, and when you compare to your topic and your field, you may see that you have only less questions to be asked. But it is not true that your research and his research are absolutely different and unique. So you can go for whatever number of questions that you wanted to ask to satisfying your research need. It is not to satisfy anyone else's need of research. It is for your purpose, that the research gap that you identified based on your review of literature. So ideally go for the data need determination based on the extensive material that you reviewed through the literature. So it would help you. Question should be for satisfying your research need. Another advice that we can give here is tools for analysis must be decided at the time of setting up of the questions itself. So are we doing it? The answer may be yes or no, but it should be yes. Why? Because we decide the research title based on the research gap that we identified, and based on that research gap and the problem we have developed our research objectives, and based on the research objectives and the probable outcomes we have set up hypothesis, and the data should be collected to satisfy all these above mentioned things, and the results also should for satisfying that need. So that the tools for analysis also must be decided at the time of setting up of the schedule. Are you going for ANOVA or multiple variable analysis or regression model or correlation or C-test, chi-square test, etc. that you are going to use depending on the number of samples that you are collecting or the data that you need for satisfying your research objective. This is the another important point that I have to share with you. Conduct the analysis by the researcher by himself. Why it is? It is observed that researchers, maybe lack of their time, lack of their skill, talents, knowledge, etc., they may go for outsourcing their work, the analysis part and all that. But it is not ideal, because you may had word with the person who is taking care of that things, but finally it may not work in the last moment, maybe because of your personal issue, or you may be having some issue with that person dealing it, and you may be having difficulty to access that resource person, and if you hand over your data or information to the person who is doing the analysis, you may lose the control over your results, or you may lose the control over the analysis that going to happen. Over and above, you must be learn to do all these kind of things, because the research is a program of train the trainer program. So you must be equipped for solving all these kind of simple issues, and it is this project or this dissertation is intended to equip yourself or to develop skill among the scholars. So it is ideal to go for the researcher himself for conducting data collection, analysis, tool decision, preparation of dummy tables, preparation of expected result. But your result may change, that is immaterial, so that you can decide upon the hypothesis whether you can go for accepting or rejection. It is possible. It is ideally the researcher could conduct all these things. Similarly, you may face the question like, why you used this particular tool for analyzing this data during your defense or viva voce exam. So if you would have exercised all these things, then you will be able to give a clear answer for the panel. So I would suggest, I would recommend the researcher follow all these points, that is the data need determination based on your research problem and the draft schedule that you are drafting, and go for a pilot study before you go really to the field. Conduct at least 10% of the sample to be collected for collecting of your main research, and conduct the real analysis, the exact analysis that what you wanted to do in your research with the exact tools that you are going to use for your final research, so that you would be able to rectify the problems that you are going to face in your real research. If you are not going for a pilot study, a pre-testing, then you would find much difficulty while you go for your real research. But if you have done a pilot study extensively, a pre-testing analysis, and producing the result based on that pilot study, you would be able to correct all the mistakes, all the issues, all the problems through modification and incorporation, addition as well as deletion. So it is my humble suggestion and advice to you all, dear friends, the researchers, the young budding researchers, to go for your research. Maybe it is small kind of research, maybe for BCom program research or BBA program research or BSc nursing project research or MBA research or MCom research. Go for your research, set up your own questionnaire and go for a pilot study, a sample study, and bring that data. And when you get the real field experience, you would be able to modify the schedule that you prepared, and you can incorporate all that things, and later you can frame the best schedule as well as questionnaire, and you can send it across your respondents, or you can go for direct data collection. It is my humble submission that the researcher himself has to do all the step-by-step activity, because it is doing for gathering knowledge. So please do have a practical experience based on the framework or the outline given from the concerned universities. So I hope this video is going to be useful for all of you, my dear friends. If it is useful, please share it with your friends and other students. Thank you very much for watching my channel. If this video is useful, please share it. And if you have not subscribed my channel so far, please subscribe it and like it, and give your valuable comments and modification required in the comment box. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you.